My love for teaching probably is really connected to the same reason I moved away from doing art for so many years, was that I want to do something that has an impact. It's kind of like at the end of our life when we turn around, we look and we see what's the wake that we're leaving behind us. And did we leave this world a better place than when we got here? Teaching really affords me that. My partner at the time, Lloyd Schwan, and the father of my 3 kids, we were living in Brooklyn. We still had the company going. This was in 1994, I guess. And so we started thinking maybe this isn't the place to be raising children, and ended up moving out to Pennsylvania. It wasn't until we'd been there for about a year that I got a call from Parsons School of Design asking if I wanted to come in and co-teach a course. And I fell in love with teaching. So this was really great, and after I'd been there for a while, I got a call from this university in Philadelphia University at the time, it's now Jefferson, in 2011. And it's been really extraordinary because opening a studio here in Philadelphia where my work is really concentrating on lighting, and teaching at a school where they've allowed me to develop curriculum based on what I do, where the students are designing luminaires as well as creating large-scale lighting installations and doing digital projection. I'm doing research with scientists who are working on, the effect of light on the body, and it's really linked what is going on in my studio to my teaching. I love when you get through to a student and they become curious. Or when you get through to a student and all of a sudden they see the impact that creating something beautiful can have. As a young person who wants to be in the creative field, things have changed. When I was teaching 15 years ago, everybody wanted to be Karim Rashid because he's a rock star designer, he's real famous. Now, students that I'm seeing want to come in and they want to make a difference in the world. They're not so interested in being the next rock star designer as they're interested in solving the problems that they're growing up with. So I think that they are so much more in tune with the need to make a difference in this world and set things straight. And so I think that we're going to have a generation of designers and artists that are doing it for different reasons. I tell my students a lot, especially by about midterm, right, when they all get really exhausted. Think about what drives you. Think about what really feeds your soul and make sure you find time for that. And the other part is that I think that when you figure out what you love to do, you have to make a commitment to do that. And there's so many reasons not to be in the arts, right? It's not a very secure way to make a living. It's, people think you're a goofball, whatever it is, right? There's a lot of reasons not to go into the arts. But if that's what's calling to you and you don't listen, I can't fathom being on your deathbed and saying, I wish I had done that. And I won't say that life has been easy. It has not, and there have been some really tough times, right? And I've had lots of tragedy, as a lot of people have. You have to make the commitment that you're going to make it, right? It's like, when we had Godley Schwan, it's not like we always had enough money to pay all the bills. But we had made a commitment that that's what we were doing, and so we did that. And we did find enough money to pay the bills and keep it going. And I think that it breaks my heart when people give up on their dreams, because you only get this life, right? And so my advice is always, stay with what you want to do. You will find a way to make it happen. The other part of that is that, when you start talking about, working in teams now, you're no longer limited to who's in the room with you. You're no longer limited to what stores you can physically reach, And so I think that I think it's a really hopeful time for them as well, but you have to commit to not giving up on yourself and not buying into that the only way to make a living is to help someone else fulfill their dream. Yeah. That's it. Light. I mean, it's not just me, okay? We are all like moths to a flame. If I put a light at the end of a hallway, you will go to the end of the hallway. You know, it's how we choreograph movement. It's how we see the whole world. I was asked to do a solo show in Cologne, Germany, at this gallery that was opening up. We filled the gallery with these images, you know, 2 foot by 2 foot of birds in flight. They were all charcoal drawings and then fed thousands of feet worth of fiber optics along the edges of the wings and the tails and filled the gallery with all of these. And I got a call from the curator about 2 weeks into the show saying that people were behaving strangely. They were coming into the gallery, sitting down on the floor. There wasn't any benches or anything. They were sitting on the floor. They weren't speaking with each other. She'd go out and try to speak to them tell them about the artist. They could have cared less. But they were staying for up to 3 hours, she said. And they were coming back multiple times. And this is not normal. That part of my brain that had been doing design for so long that is really interested in how people engage or that user experience really like woke up and said, you know, what's going on here? This is interesting. And so I spent about 1.5 years doing research on different types of imagery that engages people, nature-based imagery, natural fractals, that sort of thing, figure-ground ratio. And then we took a look at the light that we were using to feed the fiber optics. It turned out that the wavelength is the same wavelength that they use in a lot of light therapy to deal with depression. You know, the effect that natural light has on us and henceforth artificial light has on us is huge, right? So in terms of my work, it's like, you know, when I first heard that there was this other reaction that was taking place. And then when we started looking at the research in terms of both imagery and in terms of the light, I'm really fascinated in how do we use this? How can we then adapt the work so that it could have an effect on whoever's viewing it? How do we use art, whether it's through imagery or light, in settings to lower stress? In addition to that, the work that's being done right now with what is called distraction therapy, where they're using immersive imagery with the use of VR headsets for patients in acute pain. And just by giving them a headset and something else to look at other than focusing on their pain, the distraction part of that is lowering the amount of pain medication needed by an average of 24%. These numbers are huge and are such a game changer when you look at things like our opioid crisis based on giving people huge amounts of pain meds to begin with. And so, you know, we keep getting closer to be able to say, if you do this with the lighting in the room, you'll have a healthier effect. Scientists aren't used to talking to artists. Right? And vice versa, okay? And I think that the only way that we solve really big problems is working across different fields. To me, it's far more exciting to be having these conversations where you start looking at what is our impact going to be, or my ability to help people is greatly expanded by working with other experts. I look at the young people and how passionate they are to make a change. And maybe part of my hopefulness is that I've always tended to see the glass half full rather than half empty. You know, I've been accused of being a Pollyanna like for a long time, but why not? You know, if our view of the world is a story that we're making up as far as how we choose the world, why wouldn't you choose a good story?
Hello, I'm Helene Oberman, Managing Director of Interior Design Magazine, and I'd like to welcome you to ProductLive. This is our series that delves into the products and trends grabbing the industry and in real time looking at the minds behind the design. So, have you seen the signs? The signs of progress pointing us towards collaboration, community, and a more restorative environment for both people and planet. Interface is continuing its approach to designing flooring with a purpose and is launching one of its boldest, most graphic collections yet, with a focus on the collision between the built environment and Mother Nature. And with me today to discuss the development of those rising signs is my dear, dear friend, Miss Sheri Bailey, Vice President of Product Design for Interface.
Oh, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm really excited.
So I want to find out, because you described this new collection, Rising Signs, as sort of capturing the human spirit. Mm-hmm. And I really want to know, what was the source that you drew upon to really come up with this collection?
That's a great question, because what sources did we have as designers? We get the brief in March of 2020, and then the headlines are the world is falling apart. We don't know what the future is going to look like. So without any of the trade shows that we normally go to, the real inspiration came from looking at what was going on in the world. This one moment in time, collectively all around the globe, people were doing shelter in place, and with that, they were trying to expand beyond the boundaries of their four walls at home, reaching out to their fire escapes, their stairwells, anything to connect with those familiar strangers, people that they once nodded at. So this sense of community was global, and it was really the magical silver lining within tragedy.
You really looked at and were inspired what seems like opposing forces. So like thinking about sort of the architecture of the built environment. So like people looking out their windows, from their apartment buildings, but to your point of sort of landscape gardens, growing food, and Mother Nature herself. But you actually found this amazing common thread between these two opposing forces.
Yes, well, if you think about it, nature is formed of structure. You have these fractals, you have the golden rectangle, you have the chaos theory that forms this incredibly beautiful environment that we live in. And so much of architecture is founded on those rules. So to me, there was this natural connection, especially if you start with fractals. Stairways are a real obvious example of that, because of their structure is part of their beauty.
It's an amazing collection, and it's a large collection as well.
It's pretty large.
So what exactly does it consist of?
Well, we start with the stairway.
Yeah.
And then it starts to evolve into the garden.
Okay.
So with that, we have spandrel, which is this large-scale geometric, but it's a soft geometric because it's made up of these series of
points.
little dots that dither off into this field of texture and give your eye a place to rest. As we progress to the garden, we connect with those angles again that are formed out of these thin lines. And it has sort of an Art Deco feel to it. I think that Art Deco is really related to structure. If you think about it, there's a lot of formality in the Art Deco design. And then we start to abstract into, you still see the angles of the stairway, but the dithering becomes less rigid, and it starts to abstract and evolve into this other texture that is kind of a hybrid texture. And
so this is like the fence in front of the garden in a way, right?
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah,
I like that. It is a bit of the fence in front of the garden. You still see a little bit of the lattice. Yeah, and then the angle is still referenced, but it is giving way to the more organic, dusty nature of angle up. And then finally we reach the garden, where the geometry is given way to just texture with this soft ombre of color in the background.
Color is so important to any design, and we know that. So what was really your approach that you took? Because there's some really interesting bold colors here, as well as some really beautifully soft neutrals. So sort of what was your thought process in terms of developing the color palette?
Well, I wanted the color palette to be optimistic. I wanted to have some of those bolder, deeper tones in it in order to enliven the space and give it some depth. but I also wanted to have softer tones where people can feel quieter. And so the color is almost informing the way that the floor is going to be used. And versus a lot of the designs, even though they're bolder designs, like in Upward Bound, the dithering softens it, but the color helps you place it in the right environment.
You know, I've had countless conversations over the last, year and a half with designers, and through these conversations, I've been hearing this like need and this like desire for like a little bit of pop, a little bit of something that really makes people feel more positive, right? And I think you are able to capture that, and it's really beautiful to see, especially in something like Play the Angle, where you do have these like fresh yellows and greens and blues.
Oh, that green, I love that green. It is a fresh green. It's combined with a light blue, so it has a little airiness to it, and it feels like a wellness color.
Actually, the last couple of years, like green and blue, like they have become the new neutrals, and I think I think you see it in a lot of sort of furniture, kitchens, paint, anything. So now, of course,
and it's every shade of green.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's just like nature.
Yeah. Thinking about this collection, I know that you really put some thought into the fact that like versatility and flexibility are so key right now in terms of how people are designing their spaces. And I think, thinking about the colors and the patterns and however someone decides that they're going to ultimately specify it, like they really can make it work for any price point, for any project, for any, any environment, no matter where in the world.
Yeah, when we were designing this collection, we were thinking about how the world has changed so much in that short amount of time, where rules were broken. And putting things together, you see it in fashion, like what's happening in, like, look at Prada. It's like a cacophony of patterns and colors all on one person. And this kind of innovative thinking, out of the box thinking, we wanted our collection to reflect that. We wanted you to be able to put patterns that are geometric with patterns that are organic together. And they was brought together through this thread of color. So the palette is really what ties everything together instead of making matchy-matchy patterns.
But at the same time, you really thought about the fact that Rising Signs can also work with other collections, that are in sort of the portfolio for Interface.
Yeah, well, that's Interface's approach. We don't want to just do these one-offs. We think of our portfolio as a live, growing culture, and we want you to bring forward patterns that were designed years ago because they still have a purpose. When we design with intent. We don't design just for the art of designing.
So something we haven't touched on and I think is really key, and I think it's so top of mind right now, is sort of health and well-being of inhabitants within space, correct? And I think when you were designing this collection, you were thinking about these biophilic elements, but which I think is really interesting, especially because I know that increases like productivity and enhances well-being, but it doesn't always have to be so literal. And I love the fact that it's not quite so literal in this collection. And I was just wondering sort of how you were able to capture that, though, so people still understood there's nature in here.
Yes, well, I think that working with my team, they were able to input a lot of their ideas into the collection that helped give it an essence rather than hit you over the head literally with flowers or leaves or anything like that. And so I think collaboratively, it really is important to have other voices when it comes into designing a collection for a broad audience.
And I think you touched on it earlier, but you also spoke very much about the geometry of buildings, but geometry of nature as well. And that's just another way that you were capturing it in this collection. But it's actually something that's been used before in other collections, correct?
Yes, yeah. The geometry of nature, which is we refer to as fractals, right? Fractals have been a part of my design dialogue for decades. It feels like it's been there since about 1995, really, is when we were starting to use fractals as a point of reference for design. And it makes perfect sense because we should, with biomimicry, we should always be looking at nature as our ultimate source for inspiration. And then we can infuse culture and civilization into it. And when you do that, then you start connecting people together and civilizations together and different eras together, because that seems to be the common thread, is nature.
There's the health and well-being, obviously, of the individual, but I think sort of a really important message, of course, for Interface in terms of the entire Interface portfolio and the fact that all of your products can be carbon neutral, correct?
All of our products are carbon neutral. We've been working at this for a long time. Nothing compares to us in terms of our carbon footprint, and I'm super proud of Interface for achieving the status that they have in measuring everything from a life cycle analysis.
Well, I know how important it is for designers, but I also know now that their clients are so much more educated in the fact that we have to create a much more sustainable, healthier world for people, for planet, and it's just amazing that obviously you guys have such a commitment to doing that. Ultimately, you know, how do you see Rising Signs, because it is such a beautiful collection, how do you think designers are going to ultimately be utilizing it?
Oh, well, Rising Signs is so flexible. It provides the designers with so many different options in terms of flat and fluffy, in terms of more solid and bold geometrics. And I see designers using it intentionally, how they want the space to behave, how they want the person in the space to respond, as well as behave, as well as feel. If they want the person to be excited, then go for the bolder geometrics. If they want the person to be calmer, then go for the organic textures. I see the designers as being able to use Rising Signs in playful ways that they hadn't been able to before. Like, you can put proportional, which is so textural, even though it's graphic, down on the floor in any direction. And it's going to have a bold playfulness with the space that can reflect a ceiling, that can reflect a stairway, other architecture in the space.
So Carrie, I want to just thank you so much for all of your time and of course your insight into your design process for this amazing new collection, Rising Signs. And of course, seeing you live and in person is even meant that much more to me. So thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you, Helene.
And of course, to our amazing audience out there, I just want to make sure that you please check out Interface and their website to learn more about Rising Signs and their other collections. And stay tuned to get more of me and another Product Live with Interface. See you soon.
It's hard for, I think particularly for women, to be taken seriously as business owners, especially young women in an industry that's seen sometimes in a frivolous light. I think it's hard to, I don't know, sometimes legitimize that, and so then you're going through and you're meeting with these accountants and they're literally looking at you like, yeah. I don't know that that's what you're doing is going to happen, but sure, we'll take your monthly retainer. And then now it's like, oh, you have a real business. And we're like, yeah, we've been trying to tell you that we're running a real business, you know? I'm India Mayer, and this is Katie Shaw, and we are the co-founders of an influencer marketing agency called Of Note, which is centered around a physical location, which we're in, called Note House Nashville. And Note House Nashville is a content creation studio and co-working space for social media influencers and content creators.
We met here in Nashville working at a public relations agency in town. We were like instant friends and then realized that we worked like super well together, and so we decided that we wanted to do something together. You know, we knew that influencer marketing was going to be the thing that was going to take over the industry. And so we're constantly kind of thinking of creative ideas, like how can we disrupt the industry? How can we be involved in this? What can we do that will be different than what everyone else is doing? We designed the space with a particular look in mind. So the idea is the space is for content creation, and these influencers come to Note House Nashville because they want something different. They want to shoot in a space that they haven't shot before to add some interest to their social media platforms.
I'm Emily.
And I'm Abigail.
We're better known as the Wanderlust Girls. We do a fashion, lifestyle, and travel blog.
We were in New York City and we moved to Nashville a few years ago. So we love it, and this is the reason why we love it, because there's creatives like this.
We just loved every time we came here. There was so many creatives. Everyone you met was like, oh, I'm a sculptor, I'm an artist, I make jewelry.
There's obviously Music City, so there's lots of musicians, and I think more like photography and interiors. Like a lot of people are coming here, and so the brands respond well, and obviously we have now 45 influencer and content creator members in our space, so that continues to grow.
We, with our interior design partner, envision this space to have lots of little vignettes. So you can shoot over there in the corner with that cactus, and that's one photo. And then you can literally move 1 foot over and you're in front of the fireplace, and that's another photo. And then you can move again and you get the artwork, and that's another photo. So then just this one space alone, maybe get 20 photos that kind of look like they're in a different location.
You know, every nook and cranny here is so well designed and so thought out, even down to, you know, like the light fixtures and even like the vases. They're so beautiful, and those are things that we can incorporate into our shoots. Like actually this afternoon we're going to be doing a shoot here in the kitchen because we both don't have kitchens that would work for this. And so that's something that we were able to do here but we couldn't do anywhere else.
So, I mean, like, yeah, everything here is just everything we need to build our company.
One big goal of our company was to help legitimize this industry. Influencers are often looked at as frivolous. Oh, they're just posting about their outfits. Oh,
It's not hard work.
Yeah. Well, they're like making 7-8 figures a year. Not every single one, but that's the potential of that sort of career. Influencers are driving $15 billion of sales for brands. So it's legit.
And it is hard work. I mean, these people are their own small businesses.
And part of Note House is to do that, is to support them as they grow their businesses.
One thing that I think is important to mention is while we are obviously like 100% dedicated to our business and to what it is and the concept, I think one of the big things that we connected on was the fact that we wanted to have a life that wasn't just a business, and we wanted to get married and have kids and go on trips and not feel like we're in a constant rat race.
We will work really hard. We'll be sending each other's emails at 10 p.m. and, you know, working on the weekend. But then, like today, when we're done with this at 2 or 3 or whatever, we're gonna go have a glass of wine and maybe we'll get our nails done. Yeah, I think we're trying to create the life that we want.
You know, I thought she was one behind, like you enough with like trying out haircuts.
Yeah, she kind of was.
Clearly not.
Hi, everybody. My name is Paulette Pearson, and I am the Texas Homes Editor for Luxe Interiors Design. And today I'm very excited to be here talking with Sheri Bailey and Maggie Vermillion of Bailey Vermillion Interiors in Houston. I am excited to learn a little bit more about our project that we recently featured, which is in fact Sheri's own home. So it was so beautiful and had such an incredible outdoor space, and speaks to everyone, especially in this time when we're all kind of seeking beautiful outdoor spaces and trying to find a lot more pleasure and enjoyment at home. It was the perfect project, and I know it really resonated with our readers. So I'm so excited to be here and chat with you all to learn a little bit more than we did just when producing the feature. So I guess we can kind of kick things off by, I'm going to turn it over to you, Sheri, and just, do you mind telling us just a little bit about your firm and a little bit about your background, and then we'll move over to Maggie and talk about the project.
Sounds great. I'm Sheri Bailey, the Bailey of Bailey Vermillion Interiors. And Maggie and I started this company several years ago. We became friends through our carpool with our children, and Maggie was from New York. So we were constantly talking about our kids, and then it would always turn into design. And Maggie had just recently finished up design school at the time, so it was all fresh on her brain. And we both were helping all of our friends do different projects around town. And Maggie and I just became more and more consumed by it, that several years ago, she just said, do you want to start a company and actually make this happen? And I was a little scared at the beginning. I came from a sales and marketing background and really had been a mom for several years. So I hadn't worked in a while, besides numerous volunteer projects at the schools and helping out with different team sports and stuff like that. So I was super excited to open up this side of my life again and really dive into it. And Maggie, with all her New York and worldly experience, was just like the perfect partner that I could have found. So Maggie, take the floor.
Over to you, Maggie.
Well, I think Sheri said that so perfectly. I think that our company is us. Like, I think that we feed off of each other so well. And we did this dance of getting to know each other in the most natural and easy way. And we, parents know that you kind of, the way you operate and function is, differs, and there's nothing, it's just chemistry sometimes. And so we kind of realized we had that. We didn't even really have to kind of have long conversations to figure out anything. We just almost read each other's minds, and we had figured that out with kids and with carpooling and parenting, and our children are her youngest and my oldest daughter are best friends. So we had a natural progression to kind of realize that the thing you look for in a partner, so to speak. And we're both, married with children, but we had in each other, like we had this partnership already that was easy and rewarding. And then when we would always discuss design and interiors, and that was kind of we were not working together. We were both doing stuff and, kind of individually, but as she said, it kind of occurred to us it would be great to partner up and do it together. And that's when we kind of launched from, like less than part-time into like, okay, we're working now, and and it's just been growing and going ever since.
What was your kind of initial seed? What was the seed of inspiration for you in this house? I know that when we initially spoke, you mentioned that you'd grown up outside of London. So, I mean, there's that kind of sense of being outside, and there's roses, and it just feels so peaceful. Can you kind of talk a little bit about what the initial seed of inspiration was for your own home, and kind of, what kind of drove it from the beginning?
Definitely my childhood. I think that England was always our one home base. We moved around so much growing up, but that was the place we went every summer. And then we eventually moved there and had a big garden with apple orchard and cherry orchard, as well as tons of roses and a full-time gardener. And it just made such an impact on me because it was such a home. And I didn't actually realize, I didn't know I was pulling from those memories until we were building the home. And I went back to visit and I saw my old house, and the lines were, you know, it's completely different, but the lines were very similar. A lot of the aesthetics were similar, and it clicked. I was like, this was subconsciously in the back of my head this whole time when we were creating this house. So I think that, you know, and we're a family that lives in our home. It's not just for display. We use every ounce of it in every way, from the outdoors to the entertaining spaces to the personal spaces.
Right.
There's always a big group of people here, in and out, the revolving door of all different age groups, whether it's my parents or my kids or their friends or our pets.
Right. One thing that really stood out to me when we spoke initially about the project was that you talked about how important the material palette was. And it comes through so much. It gives this feeling of sort of just this of authenticity. Can you talk a little bit about the materials that you incorporated, those, you know, those antique beams that are seen throughout? And it all makes, even though the home is new, it makes it feel as if it has been there forever. So it kind of goes to that feeling of, you know, kind of an old, maybe English home. Can you talk about the materiality and your thought process behind the selections?
Yes. Well, there's so many homes being built in Houston. And one of the things I loved about England is all the homes were old and had been there for hundreds of years, or especially where we lived and where my grandmother was from in Wales. So I wanted a home that looked like it had been there. I wanted a timeless home that didn't look like it was just popped up yesterday. So, and I wanted a home that would stay and have staying power. That, you know, so many of the homes in Houston get torn down after 30 years, so which is so wasteful. So I was excited to build something with good bones. We were really fortunate that my husband's family had collected all these antique beams and wood from Fall River, Massachusetts, of all places, which is the name of our street. And I had no idea until I started inquiring more about the wood that was available to us. And they said, well, actually, it's from an old warehouse in Fall River. And I was just baffled. I was like, this is meant coincidence. My street is on Fall River in Houston, Texas. So I guess one of the things I appreciate about homes is the architecture and the different layers that make that house the home, starting from the ground up. All the brick detail, the wood beams, the plaster, all of that creates the richness of a home that I want to live in. And I want for our clients. I love those different layers. I think they just add so much value, and they really do make a house a home.
Right. So that was an important part of kind of creating the framework for the furnishings and accessories, and that you kind of brought in later on. How did you all, Maggie and Sheri both, maybe Maggie, you want to field this question. How did you all work together to furnish the home and kind of add those layers beyond sort of the framework with the materials?
Well, a lot of it started with before, you know, she was moved in, kind of discussing just different rooms. And then she knew she was going, her husband is a big hunter and fisherman, and she knew she was going to have a big trophy room, and a color palette starts to develop from that. But really, when it's not hard to envision how you want that home to be when it started to come together. It has an incredible amount of natural light. The view is amazing. It really is about the outdoor spaces. And so you can see from the front door through, you know, the back, and it's interesting because it was a balance of the layers and comfort, but clean. And I think that like, I like a clean kind of light, bright palette, and Sheri's good about, let's make it comfortable and warm and inviting. And so I think there's a good mix of your eye doesn't go to 1,000 different places, and each area has a beautiful focus, but with a very calm background. So it's really serene once you kind of get in there as well, without feeling, you know, big and cold. And so I think that was the goal.
Without feeling big and cold. And it definitely feels so warm. And I think, Sheri, you mentioned that the furnishings came at a later time. It was really those materials. And then you sort of added in, and I think you mentioned you're still working on the furnishings. It's sort of I think in the art too.
Well,
So.
when you're in the business, it is kind of
Right.
at all times.
Right. I
But
just remember being I just loved the idea of, really working on creating a beautiful foundation because, at the end of the day, that's what's most important. And I think it's a feeling that it creates, that maybe, the guests can't quite put their finger on, but they feel that it just feels like very comfortable. It's very serene. And I think you talked about those things too. About how it makes you feel when you walk in. And I've never been there, but I've seen and sort of drooled over the images. So maybe someday, but I know we don't have a ton of time left. And, but I really would feel remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about the outdoor spaces because they seem to be so integral to the project, from the views that you have inside looking out to the outdoor spaces as well. So can you talk to me about the different outdoor spaces you created, kind of how you configured them? I know the architecture kind of wraps around the lot and sort of hugs this backyard and pool. Tell me a little bit about the thought process behind them and kind of how you tied the indoors with the outdoors as well.
Well, one way we did it was if you walk into our family room, it's basically a big sea of windows that open up. And it also does that in our breakfast room and our trophy room. And the flooring outdoors is the same in our breakfast room. And we have these big steel windows. So it creates the facade that the outside is inside, especially with the continuation of the flooring in that whole area. And the colors in the house are it's a very natural palette. I did try to add lots of pops of color, but it's still a lot of colors that we see reflective in nature. The outdoor space was super important to me. I would rather be outside than inside all the time. Unfortunately, in Houston, it's a little hot. That all year round, but 80% of the year, we actually have really good weather here. So you can be outside. And I mean, couldn't have timed it any better. We got in right before Corona and all of our meals were outside. We watched TV outside. We have these incredible sofas from Daedon that we had ordered from them, and they are so comfortable. So the whole family can sit outside and watch TV and swim. And the fire pit is a great evening cocktail area. And late night, that's where the guys want to be, or the kids want to be. So it's just been a awesome family house for us, and as well as still being really pretty to look at.
Right.
So we really enjoyed it. And then I loved the whole landscaping was really fun for me too, just because I took a master gardening class in my early years and really embraced the roses, the wisteria over the barbecue area, the Peggy Martin roses, which pop in the spring, and that's over the brick archway, which leads into our loggia. So all those different elements really just warmed the whole house up, and mixed with the gas lanterns and the natural beams over the mortared brick. It just adds, all those different elements created just a very serene,
right,
pretty space that we enjoy to the fullest.
Right. Well, it's just incredible. And we're so grateful that you shared the project with Luxe. Is there a favorite part about this project?
Watching it come to life, because I knew how passionate she was about it. And, although that we kind of communicated and collaborated, it was a labor of love for her. And so watching the way she uses the home now, and she really lives in her home. I mean, I love the kitchen kind of eating area, because these views are incredible. And so those are my favorites.
How about you, Sheri? Are you still spending time every Saturday reading your design books outside?
I wish. Gosh, I don't know. I love all the spaces so much. I mean, I really do love our personal space too. Our bedroom and master bath it is so just peaceful back there, and it's kind of our own little wing, I feel like. I will say I really had fun. Maggie and I collaborated on this a lot with the lighting throughout the house. I really didn't want to catalog shop. So she had some really good input on all these fabulous sources in London. So I happened to take a trip over there and checked them all out in person. And that's where we sourced the cone rose uniaki lanterns in my kitchen and the beautiful Cox oak iron chandelier. And it was really fun to do some unique lighting pieces all throughout the house. So there's a lot of different lighting that's just unique to my house, I feel like, because no one in Houston really sources from those places. So it was really kind of fun to branch out a little in those areas.
Right. Oh, well, we're so grateful again. And, I thank you for your time today, and keep us posted on everything else that you're up to. We're excited to see more.
Thank you for the
Bailey.
Thank you.
Welcome to DesignTV. I'm Pam Jaccarino, Editor-in-Chief of Luxe Interiors and Design. Recently, I sat down with the Wizard of Wow, designer Ken Fulk, for a great conversation about his design philosophy, how to tell a great story through interiors, and much more. Enjoy the show. Hi, Ken.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. It's so nice to be with you today. Thanks for making the time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Can you talk a little bit about, when you were a kid, how did you learn about dreaming big? Talk a little bit about those very early years for you and how that shaped you.
Though I did grow up sort of, I like to say, as kind of an alien. I came out this way. I am very much the same person I was when I was 6 years old. And I don't know the answer to the question really. It's just part of my DNA. I did always see the world in this sort of cinematic fashion. It's like, I don't know, it was almost like my own little superpower where I felt like we couldn't just have lunch. We needed to, I was okay. I had to climb on the step stool and get out the good dishes, and I had to go clip the flowers, and I was in charge of every holiday. And it wasn't that I thought I knew better or something. It was more like I wanted people to have the best experience possible. And to me, it was like giving them a gift. And it's like how we all get excited when we have a great birthday gift to give someone or a holiday gift. It's almost more exciting for us. And I felt that way about life and about all aspects of it, that I just was excited for people. I'm like, why would you do it this way when we could do it this way? And you'll have so much more fun. And I still believe that. And it's still the way that I see the world. And, if there is any sort of, it's a gift to me. And so I suppose as a gift, I like to share it and make it a gift for others.
It's baked into the folk DNA.
It is, and I don't know where I am truly. Certainly, I grew up in this kind of matriarchal society, and people entertain. They didn't really have decorators so much unless you were like really rich people, and even then you didn't talk about it. But I wasn't like anyone else, and they always thought I was sort of this funny little character who went and picked out my own jackets and bought my mother dresses, and it was.
Did you feel odd, Ken? Did you feel odd, like growing up?
No, I felt very self-possessed by it. I felt like it was a very natural thing for me. I didn't feel odd. I felt like I don't know whether I got some of it from watching TV reruns. Like I literally used to say that I wanted to, they would bring me out when I was maybe 4 or 5 years old and say, tell everyone where you're going to live when you grow up. And I would say, Manhattan. I hadn't left rural Virginia. And they would say, where? In this place called Manhattan. And I said, a penthouse. And, what? I had it. My mother called them illusions of grandeur. And I think I still suffer from them. But if you're going to suffer from an ailment, I think illusions of grandeur isn't a bad one.
Yeah, make it fantastical and brilliant and wonderful. So your design business officially began when a friend asked you to lend a hand with decorating her home, and your business, sort of took off from there through, I'm sure, a lot of hard work and passion and your vision. How going from like that first job, I mean, you're such a risk taker. It seems like, from us looking in and this world that you're running and that you built, do you feel like you took risks early on in your career, and especially early on? And if so, can you talk a little bit about that and some of the risks that you took?
I mean, I still think I probably take them every day. I was never trained as a designer, and I went to school in Virginia, and I think like every young person who didn't really know what they were going to do, thought I was supposed to go to law school just to maybe to delay the inevitable. And suddenly when I began this business, it was like a light bulb went off, and because I'd never seen it as a career, it was just sort of who I was. And it became like it was like the universe aligned. And I don't know that I fully recognized the quote unquote risk. I just was unorthodox how I probably ran my business compared to most people. I mean, I take the business part very seriously, but I sometimes equate it to somebody who maybe has a good voice or likes to sing, but doesn't want to take lessons for fear of losing the gift or something. And I was a little bit like that. I wanted to find my own path, and perhaps that was risky, but maybe I was too naive to know that it was risky. And then, I believe strongly, like, in the power of yes, which requires risk. We spend so much of our lives growing up, sort of being told no or learning what's right and wrong for us. And that's important to get boundaries. But at the same point, I almost feel like as we mature, we begin to shut down a little bit because we forget how to say yes. And for me, it is the most sort of exhilarating, intoxicating, scary thing that you can do. And that is to say yes to things that you might not even know if and how you can accomplish them. And I work with an amazing team of nearly 100 people who are like insane, talented folks. And believing that we can do anything, whether that's, we've created floral headdresses. It's gone down the haute couture runway of Dolce & Gabbana. I don't know anything about couture or frankly, even headdresses, but we did it. We've thrown elaborate weddings. I had never thrown a wedding before the first one, but I was confident that we could do it. And so that's the part I think that from the outside feels risky. But to me, it is, and it's almost combined with this sort of a thing inside me that is almost like a refusal to fail. And it's not like we don't have failures. I screw up every single day. I make mistakes constantly, and I'm, a very imperfect person. But it's that willingness to sort of take the crooked path to get you somewhere that on the outside looks like, overnight success. And instead, it's just the willingness to go on the journey that ultimately will get you across that finish line. So I think that's kind of how it all just came to be. And it still dictates everything we do today.
I had a question, which is kind of interesting, where it's like, what's the Ken Fulk playbook for when you hear the word no?
I think it depends on the circumstance. Sometimes, like if we're told no, that we're not getting a job, unless I really feel like, someone's making a mistake and I know that we're right, I will move on. I won't, because I feel like there are other doors that are opening. But I don't like to hear no within my own organization, unless, I really have to be convinced if someone's telling me, not that I don't want to hear an argument or understand. I don't think I have the best ideas in the room necessarily, but if I'm told no simply because things seem like they're too hard, or they've gotten those themselves. What can be something as simple as, we're delivering a project to a client, and it's supposed to be delivered on August 24th. And I'm told that the upholsterer can't deliver the sofa, that the drapery workroom is backed up and the fabric's in Italy and it's not going to get here in time. I don't hear no. We will figure it out. I'm like, I don't care if we have to take burlap and line it with silk. We're going to hang drapes on those damn windows. Like, I will not take no. It will not be us dropping that ball. And so it's, again, part of that crooked path where I won't, we just had this very instance happen where I'm like, well, then pick the sofa up. It will go somewhere else and we'll pay them. That sofa is going to be in the client's house. I'm not going to be the one that tells them no. And so I do have that sort of take no prisoners, do anything you need to
find
do.
A solution. Find a
solution. And it may not be that exact thing that, but it's a solution. And so that's what I think success sort of looks like to some people, but it's just more about being a solution-based company.
You've summed up your design philosophy, Ken, in a sentence. I love this. Fear is the enemy of good design. Tell us how are you fearless, and how did you learn to become fearless? You're going to say that you were born fearless. I feel like it takes guts. Where does that courage come from? And how do you muster it, or particularly early? I feel like it's probably something that everyone always needs. You can't just go, okay, I've got the courage, but talk about being fearless.
It is the little Latin phrase on our first book, that fear is the enemy of good design. And I don't know that I'm truly fearless. I mean, I find it to be a motivator. Like, when I'm worried about something, having a bit of fear is a good thing, because I find it to be a motivating thing. It makes me realize the pitfalls and to be present. And so I have a good dose of it all the time. But what I don't let it do is, sort of diminish what we do, because I'm afraid if someone's not going to like it, or someone's going to say something unkind, or because I think so often we get beige from fear, and who wants to live in that world? Like, I say, if everybody likes something, it's not interesting, and it's probably not that good. And so, and it's not like I think everything we do is fantastic, but I won't be afraid to do it and afraid to make a mistake, because I know that we're smart enough to adapt. And so, certainly there's an amount of self-confidence. There's also an amount of feeling willing to just kind of go for it. And I don't know that it's fearlessness. It's just
you don't want to play it safe, because
I don't
boring.
like to play it safe. It just isn't why we're here on the planet. There's a Steve Jobs quote that says, if you're not going to make a dent in the universe, why are you here? I feel obligated to do that. I do think, and this sounds almost cocky, and I mean it almost in the opposite way, but I think there's something like exceptional about my life and about the things we're here to do. And so I feel obligated. I feel like I've been given an opportunity, and why would I squander it? Like, then I feel like I would have been a really bad steward to my life, to my business. And so I feel a sense of obligation to whatever greater power, whatever has given me good fortune, I give myself pep talks. I talk to myself all the time, like where I say, be present, don't screw it up.
It's so interesting when you said that, like it's your obligation, because it reminds me of what you said about, you know, a gift that you want to give. And it's for me, I just make a connection there to, you know, this is your gift and you're putting it out there for all of us. So anyway, thank you. Okay, I've got so many more questions. I've got a whole list.
Uh-oh.
I got a whole list. I have to talk to you about this. So you're a self-taught designer. You've gone with your gut. You've gone with the, you know, the visions that you've had, and you view life through this incredible cinematic lens. And that there are these visual ideas that are in your head. You refer to them as your movies. Talk a little bit about your approach to design, Ken, and like the storytelling that underscores, I think, everything that you do. Explain what you mean to this team when you talk about storytelling and your movies.
So for some reason, I've always called our projects movies. We have a new book that's coming out next year called The Movie in My Mind, with my head sort of exploding with all of these ideas coming out of it. And I sort of had a realization as to maybe why. Part of it is because I don't possess any abilities I can't express myself through drawing. I don't use, you know, I'm not an expert at CAD or computer. I was never trained in any of that. By the way, we now have a team where every single person is a highly trained expert in all of this, but I had none of those abilities. And the only way that I could express myself was through words. And early clients, there were no presentations. I literally walked them through spaces and I told them what would happen. And it made me a really good storyteller. Long before people ever talked about experiences and the experiential economy, I just sort of understood that. I knew what we were providing, you know, because our clients, most of them are, you know, benevolent billionaires who have, like, you know, and that's just sort of a weird fact. And you know, they're really nice people, but they have a lot, and what they're interested in isn't about accumulation. Like luxury and having wealth has sort of been redefined, at least for my clients, and it becomes about imprinting memories. And we do that by facilitating those things to happen and setting the stage for it. And so we begin every project with words on paper. We literally start telling the story and then we bring it to life. And we bring it elaborately to life through visuals and drawings and concepts. And even almost every house project we work on, we do branding and graphics because we want to make it, we want to bring it to life, and not just in a, you know, sort of a pretty room, but beyond that, what's going to happen in the room. So I do think it's what makes us a bit different than most creative firms out there and how we do things.
What do you think are the most important, you know, qualities or the mindset for anybody to succeed, whatever they're doing, right? I mean, if you want to stand out and be the best in every field has, you know, every field is crowded. But what are if you had to say, like, this is the ingredients. There's three things that, like, if you don't have this, it's just going to be really, you're always going to be sort of the back of the pack. What would you say those are?
The number one, I don't know about three, but certainly the number one for me is relationships. I think every job, no matter what, whether you're a salesperson, whether you're work in accounting, whatever your role may be, it's ultimately about building relationships with people, I think, to be successful, because there are a million super talented designers out there who have incredible ideas and amazing vision. But I would be hard pressed to think that anyone could care more deeply about the relationships with the clients, with my team, than I do. And I take it super seriously, and I just genuinely care. Like, it's not, I think it's actually Frank Lloyd Wright of all things, but there's a quote that, not all my friends are clients, but all my clients are friends, because you have to care about people, and it has to be genuine. You can't be, if you're insincere or inauthentic, it shows. And so I think, to me, that is the number one key to becoming successful in any field, is being good and truly caring about relationships and people. And, I think so often you think, oh, you have to be ruthless, or you have to be, sort of, and I think it's the opposite. I think you have to be good and kind and care and genuinely do that. And then the rest sort of happens if you actually have the goods to do it, if you are talented in whatever field that may be.
What are the ingredients of a good story in your mind?
For me, it's usually, and I guess there could be a day that I wake up and they don't pop into my head, but for me, I'm like a sponge with it and just absorb them. There definitely needs to be, it's like a basic character plot where you want to have sort of, an opening, a sort of crescendo, and a finale. I love a good finale. And, we do think about it in that way, where in the book we're doing, that we see them as, there's like action thrillers and romantic comedies. And so I think thinking about, you want to grab people's attention to begin with, to get them excited and engaged. And then, you need some intrigue. And then you need the big ta-da.
The showgirls that come in dancing on a cake.
You definitely need, who doesn't want showgirls coming in? And so for me, that's key to good storytelling. As far as inspirations, I pull them weirdly from early childhood memories to a movie I saw last week, to, a floor I walked on in India and thought it was cool. And I'm not the world's, like, some people are such great students, and they have so much information in them, and I feel like more like life's a smorgasbord, and I sort of pull little pieces from it. And it's like, if you know how to cook, I don't need the cookbook. I'm just going to go in the kitchen. I'm going to grab some things out of the pantry and the fridge, and I sort of put it together, and I keep tasting it until we get it right.
So we have a lot of folks listening in who are in sales and marketing and catering to clients. I think you talk about the relationship being the most important thing, but how do they, I was going to ask you, because I feel like you're great at the relationship, but also like the Ken Fulk razzle dazzle, like nobody does it better. How do they close deals? What can they do beyond the relationship? They're closing a deal. Give them a few one Ken Fulk good, kind of ingredient to help close a deal beyond the fact that they have to have a great relationship with their clients.
Sure. I always try, we like to say, to delight and surprise. And so, it's fun to sort of take people's breath away. We try to think of those things that are creative, unexpected, whether it's, sending the perfect or funny, ridiculous gift. I have a very long-term client now who I was at the opening of the opera, and I was wearing some crazy Lanvin big bow tie, and he commented on it. And this guy is never going to wear a bow tie, but I sent him one beautifully wrapped, and I said, everybody needs a big one. And he was like, sort of, I'm sure, taken back but funny. And we built a relationship on just like, something slightly ridiculous. I also think, being willing to do things that don't always seem like it's transactional. Because I think, especially in sales and marketing, because it is a transactional by nature, that when you do things where there may not be something in it for you whatsoever, but you're just doing it because it's about building that relationship. So we often do that. We keep track of almost, all of our friends and colleagues' birthdays. I make sure I do something for them, and they're sort of like, how do you remember my birthday? And this is someone that they just stay on our list, and to do something nice for them, to make them feel recognized. And then sometimes we literally do send in a troupe of dancers. No joke. And I think thinking of those things and not always looking at the end result of getting the deal signed, but looking at the long game.
Ken Fulk, what is your favorite word?
Yes.
What is your least favorite word?
Maybe.
What turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
Dogs.
I knew you were going to say your dogs. Everybody, if you're not following Ken on Instagram, you must see his dog.
No one follows the design. They just follow my dogs.
That's
why they don't have their own channel.
You know, when they're in P-Town and they jump in the water, I just am like, I've got little Shih Tzus. They don't love the ocean, but yeah. So anyway, what turns you off, Ken?
Mean people.
What is your favorite curse word?
Well, I have a last name, Fulk, and so it is so close to. Excuse my language. My mother may be watching. She's not. But we have a lot of fun with it, so it's hard not to be my favorite curse word.
What sound or noise do you love, Ken?
It goes back to my dogs. If you watch any of these videos, they sound like little snorting pigs when they come out of the water. And I love that sound.
No.
It brings me joy. We do that like twice a day, by the way. If you see those videos, it seems like I post them a lot, but it's a big part of our lives. And any time of the year, whether it's in a pool or in the, it brings me great joy.
I get it. I am the mother of 2 dogs and 2 human boys, but the dogs, we're all about the dogs. Yeah, seriously. I tell my kids, you kids are nice, but it's all about the dogs. What sound or noise do you dislike?
Nails on the chalkboard.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Movie making.
I feel like there's going to be a movie. There's going to be like a Ken Fulk. I just want to say one thing about this. I think you must go down the Quentin Tarantino route if you're going to do a movie. So Quentin Tarantino does not believe in a small screen Netflix, even though they are, that's the new way. I think we're going to do a Ken Fulk movie, or you're going to do a Ken Fulk movie. It's got to be on the cinematic big screen.
Giant.
Big screen. You cannot watch it on your phone.
No.
You cannot watch it on your TV at home unless you have a big one. That's all I'm going to say, a big TV. Okay. What profession would you not like to do, Ken?
I would not like to sit in an office all day.
One last question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Welcome home.
Because you love the cinema and just the visual, are there any do you have like your favorite movie directors, past or present, or if you had to live on an island and you just take a few great films with you, you're gonna have a big screen, right? We're gonna go Tarantino. What are you gonna watch?
I remember films so vividly from my childhood that had a big impact on me. I sort of grew up around these blockbuster movies of the E.T. and I must have paid to see Grease how many times, the idea of I knew every song by heart. But I do remember being really little, and this is a funny film because it kind of didn't get great reviews when it came out, and it was Gene Kelly directed Hello, Dolly, and it starred Barbara Streisand. And I think it literally came out when I was probably, was I born? I don't know. But I remember being mesmerized by it. And even to this day, that sort of Harmonia Gardens restaurant scene of her coming down the stairs and the feathered headdress and Louis Armstrong and the dancing waiters. And if I had to encapsulate something that sort of was my idea of what, dinner out in New York was supposed to look like, that was it. And so we just screened it. I did in Provincetown. We opened an outpost of the St. Joseph's Arts Foundation in an old sea captain's house called the Provincetown Art Society that really is meant to be in service to the town and to the organizations there. And the amazing artisan who helped with the house built a huge movie screen. And so in the back courtyard, we show movies under the stars to help raise money for the Film Society that sort of had a hard time through the pandemic, like so many places. And we just showed Hello, Dolly, which made me very happy.
That's wonderful. There's another great movie. It's called That's Entertainment, and it's
Yes.
Those just, was it, I don't know, I should read up Bugsby, Berkeley, or what, just those.
It is. It's sort of that Ziegfeld-esque.
Oh yeah, I mean, they just went for it. So maybe I'm going to watch that this weekend. You've inspired me. But Ken, thank you so much for doing what you do and inspiring all of us, and for the gift of your time that you've given to all of us today. Truly, we really appreciate it so
Oh my
much.
gosh, thank you all for having me. I am a fortunate man, and I'm glad that you were interested in hearing from me. So thank you.
Introducing the Monogram Professional Range, exquisite design, and the only gas burner with precision heat controls. Monogram Luxury Appliances.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this special edition of NKBA Live. I'm Corwin Thompson, Lead Marketing Specialist at the Monogram Design Center in Chicago. I'm delighted to be here today, and we at Monogram are proud to sponsor this K-Biz webinar series. We're really grateful that NKBA is proactively sharing important information about K-Biz 2022. We can't wait to be there live. We have so many innovations to introduce, and we're looking forward to showing them to our industry in person. Now, it gives me great pleasure to bring in someone who really needs no introduction, NKBA's EVP and Chief Strategy Officer, Susie Willifer.
Thank you, Corwin. Great to see you. We are so grateful to Monogram for sponsoring the K-Biz series. But it's not just a one-time thing with Monogram. They have been wonderful partners of the NKBA throughout the years. And they are also big exhibitors and sponsors of K-Biz. We truly appreciate and value their partnership, their friendship, and their membership. Please support them. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know if you have questions about anything on today's K-Biz webinar, please put them in the Q&A channel. We promise to answer each and every one of them by the end of the day on Monday. So let's get started. Today, we're really thrilled. I'm especially thrilled because K-Biz is ramping up, and we have some important updates to share with you about our in-person show in February. We've heard from so many of our members and exhibitors about how excited they are that we're returning to a live event. Virtual is great. Don't get me wrong. It has sustained us for the last year and a half, and I don't know what we would have done without it. But to really showcase all the new products, services, you need to experience them in person at K-Biz. Frankly, there is nothing like that in-person conversation and relationship building that makes all of our businesses so much more successful. And for me personally, and I'm sure for you, so much more fun. We realize, though, that there are some lingering questions about the show. That's why we are hosting 3 webinars about K-Biz over the next several months to keep you informed on the most current information. Of course, we'll also keep you updated as the status evolves. And if there's anything the last year has taught us, is that change is constant. Today, I'm very happy to be joined by 2 executives from our show producer partner, Emerald Expositions, to talk over all the expo, the health and safety protocols we're putting in place, and the latest with our exhibitors. First up, please welcome my really good friend, Emerald's EVP, Brian Pagel. Hey, Brian.
Thanks, Susie. It's great to be here.
Thanks, Brian, for being here. You know, it's been nearly 2 years since the last in-person show, which is really hard to believe. So why don't you share with us what you think will be different, or even more importantly, the same, for the upcoming K-Biz in Orlando?
Well, there's no doubt the world we live in, things will be different. And we've learned a lot over the last few years. And our hope is really to take much of what we have learned in terms of ways that we've been able to communicate with the marketplace during this downtime and bring those into the mix with K-Biz so we can elongate that experience. That's going to include a lot of on-demand sessions as well as some remote live, because we know that at times you get busy on show site. Maybe you can't be 2 places at once, or perhaps you wanted to go back and refer to a session that you may have gone to. So we're looking to make those resources widely available to the market. So we'll be rolling these things out in the coming weeks and certainly look at how they can help to enhance your overall K-Biz experience.
So, you know I personally just can't wait to experience K-Biz in person again. But let's talk about what we are doing from a virtual standpoint at K-Biz. Tell us about video at K-Biz, and if you think there'll be any live streaming, and what the plan is for the on-demand content following the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing people will notice is a lot of cameras on the floor. So we have targeted a number of key sessions that will be live streamed throughout the show. So that's going to be the State of the Industry, State of the Association presentation, the NKBA Design Awards, and then all of the sessions on the K-Biz Next Stage. And all the other sessions will be made and available in an on-demand format. Over the next few weeks and coming months, we'll be rolling that out more broadly so that everyone knows how they can access those materials throughout the year.
Because of 2021 being virtual, we put Voices of the Industry online afterwards, and it was available to the people that signed up for Voices on an extended way. Wow, that's a genie we'll never put back in the bottle, because it was just such an advantage for all of our conference attendees to be able to go and do all of them. So it really allows everyone to really be able to attend the whole conference and also be able to have more time on the show floor. Brian, we know that you do events, lots of events. Emerald is one of the largest show producers in the US. So I think our viewers would probably really like to know what has been the experience in the other trade shows in person this past year since people have started going back to trade shows.
Yeah, absolutely. We have had the great pleasure and great fortune to be able to put on 20 face-to-face events thus far in 2021, with about 10 of those taking place in the last 45 days. So certainly we've learned a lot. We're hosting events in destinations throughout the country. And as we know, they all have different processes, procedures, policies, et cetera. So we've become quite good at evolving and adapting. But I think some of the bigger trends that we've noticed is, while the majority of our events have been smaller in size when you compare them to a pre-COVID environment, although we are starting to see signs that that's changing and changing relatively quickly, we found almost universally that engagement at these events has been just completely off the charts. And really what we're finding is that the buyers that are there are highly focused, highly qualified. They want to see new products, new solutions, new services, and they're really taking the time to do their research. So we have found it to be very beneficial in terms of one of the key metrics that we follow very closely, which is Net Promoter Score. So our exhibitors and attendees have been far away, blown away with what they've seen, regardless of market. And there are some obviously market nuances, but generally speaking, We've also found that, it just turned out to be a great opportunity. There's such a desire for people to reconnect in person, with old friends, old colleagues, to seek out new products. Product exploration journey is so big. So I'm very excited for what February is going to hold.
Me too. And you're right that human contact is so important. And the other thing is, there's so many new products that we really haven't seen in person because the launches just haven't been there except for online. So to be able to touch and feel these products, talk to the people about how they work, I think it's very important. Kind of move over to an issue that I know is important to everyone, and that's safety. Our teams, your team, my team, and the NAHB team, we've all been working closely together to make sure that we are making decisions to keep our exhibitors and our attendees safe at K-Biz, and that those are ever changing. Can you share with everyone where we are so far?
It goes without question. Health and safety remains our top priority, and will be for the foreseeable future. We have an obligation to create safe spaces for our community to gather. And so we don't take that lightly. In its current format, we're following CDC guidance and recommendation, which, just to quickly summarize, and all of this is available on kbiz.com. We've required masks for non-vaccinated individuals and are highly recommending masks even for vaccinated people. But that being said, we're constantly looking at what's happening on the ground as well as nationally. And as circumstances change, so will our policies. So we're currently in some discussions right now with our partners at Home Builders, of course, with your team, Susie. And in the coming weeks, we'll likely be recasting some of our health and safety protocol.
Brian, talk to me about the company Epistemics that you've hired to model the future when it comes to the pandemic. What impact will this have on K-Biz?
So they're working with other organizers. They work with corporate entities, school districts, associations, healthcare systems, and governments to evaluate on how to respond to COVID-19 and other epidemics. So in the case of K-Biz 22, things are looking very positive.
So interesting. And I really applaud the epistemics part because that does give some information based on fact, based on science. And I think that, everyone will need to stay totally up to date, come to the kbiz.com website frequently, getting back to safety. Why don't we talk about what will be required? Mask, negative COVID test. Will you have to show proof of vaccination? We all know that CES announced last month that they are going to require proof of COVID vaccination to attend the show. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so much of it comes down to the markets that you're in. Obviously, what's happening in Las Vegas is going to be far different than Orlando. You've got destinations like New York that are requiring vaccine requirements to enter public spaces, whereas Nevada has masks and the opportunity to forego those masks should you have a vaccination policy. So Florida's a little different. Again, right now we're following CDC guidance and guidelines, but I suspect based on where these conversations have been going internally and gauging sentiment throughout, I suspect there's going to be some enhancements. But we will be updating the market on a fairly frequent basis. And, listen, we understand that this changes daily. And so, the policy and protocol we may have today may be vastly different than what we do later. As it stands right now, we still have a mask mandate for unvaccinated attendees and highly recommend masks for those attendees that are vaccinated.
Brian, I can't thank you enough for taking your time because this has been so helpful. And as you said, we're going to be transparent. We're going to do everything we can to protect and put on a safe show, but then to put on a very robust show. And I've been to a couple of trade shows in the last couple of weeks. And, even though, as you said earlier, crowds are a little diminished on some of them, but boy, the exhibitors were happy because most everyone that came was a decision maker. It was people that could really make their time together at the show beneficial. And that's really what we're looking for. Bring people back together, have a little fun, and be safe and go home stronger than you came. So I appreciate you taking the time to join me today and answering some really tough questions.
I'm glad to do it. Glad to be here. We are so fortunate to have partners at the NKBA that have such a broad view of the world, and we certainly look forward to getting back in person and seeing everyone next February.
Oh, great. Thanks, Brian.
Thanks.
Next, I'm happy to introduce another friend from Emerald to talk about our exhibitors and other few key points about K-Biz. I'd like to introduce our show manager, Jason Mcgraw. Hello, Jason.
Hey, Susie. Glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad you're here with me. Let's jump right in. So let's start with who all is exhibiting at K-Biz 2022.
Well, I'm excited to report that the leading brands in the industry that everybody's come to know and love over the years of K-Biz will be back at the show in 2022 in Orlando. We have Kohler and Samsung, Signature, Kitchen Suite, Cafe, Monogram, and Profile, BSH Appliances, Delta Faucet, Electrolux, Toto, LK, Moen, Miele.
Yeah, that's great because it sounds like the gang is all here. It's impressive as always, but I think everyone understands that this is the place to come and be together as a community. So can you share a little bit about what the exhibitors will be doing at K-Biz, stuff that's not, under wraps?
We are expecting over 425 brands to exhibit at the show, and we're signing up new exhibitors every week. In the conversations that we've had with exhibitors, many are bringing new exhibit displays to showcase their new products. Since it's been 2 years since K-Biz 2020, and a lot's happened in those 2 years. So they're excited about getting back to meet with the industry face to face. I think attendees are going to be very amazed at the quality of products at the show floor this year, the opportunity to see and touch and get to talk directly with the manufacturers' representatives in the booths on the floor. It's going to be an amazing experience.
So this is going to be your first in-person K-Biz, which I can't wait for you to be there. What are you personally excited about?
Just being able to get back to an in-person show after having this, couple-year hiatus is frankly something that, I'm totally excited about. And I think attendees and exhibitors are too. I think there's a pent-up demand to meet face-to-face, as we talked about. But, specifically at the show, we have a new launchpad area this year in the Discovery District over in the South Hall, where we're going to have new-to-market exhibitors for attendees to see some of the latest cool new products. We're also adding a smart home new product kiosk area in both the South Hall and the West Hall Convention Center lobbies, so you can see the latest kind of smart home products there. We're also putting a greater emphasis on luxury products this year with the Icf Pavilion. And as you know, a lot of homeowners have been spending a lot more investing in outdoor living and wellness solutions for their homes, over the last couple of years with the pandemic. So we have new pavilion areas for outdoor living and wellness as well. And I think this is the best opportunity to kind of get a whole experience in one time, one place, and meet new brands that you might want to pick up and offer to your customers. If you're a designer, if you're a distributor or showroom, you want to connect with the brands you work with, but also discover some new ones. So it's really an unparalleled shopping opportunity, but it's also a business development opportunity at K-Biz.
Well, that all makes perfect sense. By now, you probably are more than likely spoken to most of our exhibitors. So what do you think are their major concerns for K-Biz?
Susie, I think it's a combination of those. We've definitely heard from many exhibitors concerned about, how many people are going to come to the show, and what about all these COVID cases in Florida and restrictions, and our international guests may not be able to come, and so forth. But that's all starting to clear up. Brian alluded to the epistemics data that we've recently received, and clearly it shows that it's going to get better by showtime. There's going to be significantly fewer cases in this wintertime going into the show. We also know, based on the data, that it's safer to go to a B2B show because there's a higher percentage of attendees that are vaccinated than the general population. And this has been proven through the data they've accumulated across many events that have been taking place this year. So we think we can put on a safe show. Certainly the supply chain issues are on everybody's mind. And that's been a byproduct of the economy restarting and the COVID challenges. But hopefully that starts to ease as we get through to the show. But clearly that's a concern for some brands, having to make arrangements to get their products shipped and exhibits built and so forth. So we're working with many companies now and having those conversations. We think we can get it cleared out. Recent announcements from the government saying that international travel will be able to resume this fall to the United States is fantastic news. So we'll be very excited to have a lot of our international guests be able to join us in Orlando.
I've heard from a few of them, and they are very excited that they're now able to go to come here. And I think that that's just wonderful. And I think everybody, as you said, it's starting to loosen up a little bit. And I think people get a little confused because you see these sporting events where there's 30,000 people there, not a problem. And then you go to a trade show and everybody gets nervous about a trade show when they were at a baseball game or a football game the week before. It's confusing to people. And so I think, we'll keep all the information we can possibly keep for everybody on kbiz.com to make sure that everybody, makes a decision based on what they're comfortable with and that we're giving them all the information. The epistemic part is going to be a huge help for everybody because that's verified information that people can make their decisions on.
So true.
You think anything on the show floor is going to change as a result of the health and safety protocols that we're putting in place? I mean, will we still have the tours be a part of K-Biz? Will there be in-booth events? So what are we planning on that?
Well, our plan, Susie, is to have the show pretty much operate it as it has in the past. We have very expansive booths. There's plenty of room in the convention center, very large lobby areas. We have the entire building in two halls. There are currently no, social distancing requirements in place in the Orange County Convention Center. But at the same time, people need to feel comfortable. And, if they need to room the space out, then, they might step away if it gets too crowded for them personally. So it's really up to each individual in terms of, how comfortable you feel in the show. We definitely encourage everyone to wear a mask, regardless of vaccination status. So, and all the common sense things we've come to learn over the last couple of years, regularly washing our hands and using hand sanitizer and all these things. So we think we'll have a very safe show on the show floor.
Here's a hard question. And let's just get this one out of the way because I'm sure people are curious. Has anyone decided not to show at K-Biz in February? And if so, do you know why?
Well, we've had a very limited number of exhibitors, choose not to participate this year who had signed up. We certainly have fewer exhibitors at this point than we had for the 2020 show. I don't think that's a shock to anyone. There's certainly, some smaller brands, smaller companies that, are still working their way back this year, given the pandemic and all the other challenges that are out there. But so far, health and safety has not been a driver for many companies have chosen not to return to the show. There have been a couple recently that expressed concerns about health and safety, and we are proactively addressing that. We've actually had a couple brands tell us they were going to consider dropping out, and then they changed their minds and in the last week and come back. So, best that we can say is it's a fluid situation. We encourage everyone to keep looking at our floor plan on kbiz.com. It has a current exhibitor list. It is up to date. And so the brands that you see on there are contracted and plan to be at the show. And we continue to sign up new companies.
That's great. That's great information because I'm not sure all of our attendees have even ever really known to go to K-Biz. I think this more than ever is a good time to go to kbiz.com, really research the site, look at the floor plan, make sure the people, we have well over 340 people, exhibitors that are going to be there. There's bound to be the ones there that you need or that you want to see the product or you want to make the introduction. as a past specifier, you know, being from the industry, I came home every time from K-Biz with new products, new ideas, new connections that then helped me build my business. And also just if I was in a position where I couldn't take my sales team, at least I could come back and relay to them all the opportunities. And I think, you know, not having a live show in 2021, being able to get everybody together again and see all that is really important. So if you had anything you could say to anyone who was thinking of not exhibiting or not attending K-Biz, what would you say to them?
Well, I would say, what other opportunity would you have in the Western Hemisphere in 2022, or certainly over the last 2 years, to be able to connect with the distributors, the designers, the showrooms, the custom builders, the architects? There hasn't been an opportunity to do that in person. And it's such a great chance to get back together safely. There's just something that you can do in person that you just can't do online. And I would ask companies to think long and hard. If they're not in the show, they should call us up today and get a great spot. If they're waffling and considering maybe I shouldn't be there, think about the lost opportunity of not being there and letting your competitors talk to your customers. To me, there's so much at stake. And I think it's a great way to reconnect with the channel and propel your business into 22 and beyond to take it to the next level. I know things have been great. The housing market's been on fire. The remodeling industry's been on fire. But now we want to keep it going. And what better opportunity do you have than doing it at K-Biz 22?
Well, that's great. And that was a wonderful answer. And, you know, I know that you're creating things for the people who don't attend, but that doesn't really take the place of being there. And I love that we can access some of the programming post K-Biz, especially for our Voices sessions. And that's not for people that can't be there. That's just also for the people that are there that need more time to be able to hit all 80 conference sessions. Because, you know, there's so many of them you can't attend while you're at the show. And now Next Stage, really excited that they'll be able to see Next Stage. So, you know, it's not a replacement, but when you can't bring your whole staff or whatever, there'll be something for everybody, both virtually and in person. Jason, I really thank you. This is such good information. I can't wait for everybody to get to know you. Your number 2 show, and nobody's even really gotten to meet you yet. So I'm excited about that. So I can't wait to see everybody at K-Biz 2022 in Orlando, February the 8th through the 10th. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thanks, Susie. We'll look forward to seeing everybody there.
Absolutely. I want to thank all of you so much for joining us today, and hope you'll be back for our next K-Biz webinar on October the 28th. And that one we'll be talking about special NKBA and K-Biz events and activations that we're going to have at the show, which are, you know, we've got them all going. We've got more that we're adding. It's going to be very robust. Again, thank you so much to Monogram for your support of this. I think that all of our attendees and exhibitors are grateful that you are making it possible for us to bring all this important information to make sure we have a lively, robust K-Biz 2022. So thank you so much.